All right, welcome back. Now, this is Newspaper Review, and here we'll be going into the papers, looking at stories that made it to the cover pages of the dailies. And also, we'll be talking to some Nigerians from the streets of Lagos, where we're broadcasting from, and they'll be letting us into their thoughts. Now, you should be able to, now you can actually send us a video, a WhatsApp video. You could post it underneath the live stream in a 1 minute video, shouldn't be more than 1 minute, responding to any of the headlines from the dailies. All right, so you make a video of yourself responding to a headline from the dailies, and we will take it in the course of the program. All right, so I will be waiting for your responses in the course of the program. Well, let's take you quickly into some of the headlines here. I have The Guardian, The Punch, and Business Day on the table, but we do have some of the papers, e-copies of some of the papers. From The Guardian newspaper, the banner headline is World Food Day. Today, of course, is World Food Day. And that's the headline there reads, Inflation-weary Nigerians begging, borrowing for survival. And then right there, The Guardian, by the conservative estimate of the national average cost of a healthy diet of 1,255 naira per meal as of August figures, a family of four would require 150,000 a month to have a meal daily. Low-income families unable to afford basic food. Many Nigerians will struggle to meet their expenditure between now and 2025, CBN survey. 1.6 million hectares of land have been inundated by flood, climate-induced issues, and insecurity. 50% of fresh agricultural produce in Nigeria is lost during the post-harvest stage. All right? So there was a report some time back that spoke about famine in the land, that Nigerians will experience famine in the nearest future. I think that was from 2022 or 2023. We seem to be gradually getting closer.
Someone even said it by February, March this year.
Okay.
That before the end of November,
Nigerians
will experience food scarcity.
We seem to
that
have
will lead to
there.
famine.
Yes, we seem to have gotten there with insecurity, with natural disaster, flooding. You know,
our
washing
off
farmlands.
The few farmlands that we even have that were cultivated during the farming season are being washed away, by flood and all natural disaster, whether they are natural or whether they are man-made or whatever.
Well, it's interesting because the school of thought has it that some of these states allow these things to happen so they could get funds.
Yes. But you begin to ask, ahead of the flood season, there were also like 40 billion naira was paid out, from the ecological funds to states. Just between December and September this year. Sorry, between December and June this year, ahead of the flood season.
Ecological funds.
And so what did they do with the money? Nobody has accounted for that.
Oh, well, some more headlines here in Nigeria. Others may need 100 years to end extreme poverty, says World Bank. I have a problem with this World Bank guys. They come up with figures. So Nigeria may need 100 years to end extreme poverty. And they are the same people saying that the policies of this administration should be sustained for the next 15 years for us to start to benefit.
This one you are keeping quiet. Did you work for World Bank? I was waiting for.
Okay, you want to just read out
introduce
everything?
Me.
Okay. Well, court sentences teenager to 5 years imprisonment for sexual assault. Your policies punishing Nigerians. Professional bodies tell Tinubu. Power Minister denies multiple grid collapses, blames minor trip-offs. Abbas flares 10,000 naira monthly upkeep for pensioners. Lagos Red Line Rail begins operation to move 500,000 passengers daily. All right, so these are the headlines. Now, yes, you've heard the voice of Dele Fanimo, a seasoned reporter, a VOP in-house analyst, Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Looked like you just came back from Abuja.
No,
From a,
that
World,
was
from
then.
a World Bank meeting.
that was then. Not now.
Okay.
Going to Abuja mean nothing now. Because
Really?
there's nothing to talk about in Abuja today.
Oh, there's a lot to talk about.
No. The MDAs are not functioning the way they should. Going to Abuja, it's not like those days of Jonathan or the other days of Buhari. Things have changed. If you go to some of these big hotels in Abuja today, they are so deserted that we think that there's war.
Can you imagine?
It's as bad as that.
Is it bad or is it good?
If they are
That
deserted.
somebody's not making money.
No, we don't have people locking the corridors of power, feeding off the presidency and all of that. Doesn't that amount to a cut on the cost of governance? That people don't have free money again to roam the streets of Abuja doing nothing. Isn't that good?
You see, there is a change, there's a paradigm shift from those days when people pick crumbs. But today, those people eating on the table, they don't even allow crumbs to fall.
Because
that's-
exactly what I'm saying.
That's what
It
you're
doesn't
saying.
mean that the
It's a winner
president-
takes all now.
Does it mean that the president is blocking loopholes?
There is no let.
Blocking
No.
leakages here
There is
and
no
there.
let to corruption. But it's just taking a new shape.
So corruption
Those days-
is persisting.
Those days, when you get contracts, you subcontract, you give out money, you do this. But now, they even take the money from source, not even talking about contracts. So that's why those hangers on that were feeding fat on the crumbs, they no longer see the crumbs. It's just like this joke that,
But is the job being
which
done?
is that these days you hardly dream of eating in your dreams because there's nobody to prepare the meal.
Okay, well, let's talk about the World Bank now.
You see, one thing is this pill that World Bank, Bretton Woods institutions offer third world countries. I've never seen where it has worked. But because they provide the vehicles that takes our leaders to the powerhouse, it is still difficult to detach yourself from the apron string of these Bretton Woods institutions. How can somebody in his sane mind say a country would remain the way it is in the next 100 years and you are not providing solution to it? I'm sure those days in Singapore, if they were to say the same thing, they would say so when Singapore was going through a whole lot of poverty-induced economy. So, but today, it's a new song for Singapore. The point is, World Bank cannot tell us all those facts, all those figures they are reading out. They are coming from their own structured and organized environment where the informal sector and the formal sector are captured in the net, the economic net of such countries. Not here in Nigeria that even the informal sector holds more funds than the formal sector. And this sector is not captured in the data that they used engaging the economy of Nigeria. So whatever that is does not amount to anything as far as I'm concerned. How many times have they predicted that Nigeria will crumble? How many times have they predicted that Nigeria will break? But still, we are together. Still, the economy, though is still tottering, but we have not crashed. And we are still working it out to make sure that we get on our feet. So for me, it's just a doomsday prediction that I don't think would ever happen.
You see, I sometimes I get confused because when people say that that World Bank and IMF prescriptions are they meant just to keep the third world countries, if there's any, or developing countries, because we don't use that third world in the.
It's just because it's derogatory.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
because it's derogatory. But the point is,
underdeveloped.
yes, we can excuse ourselves from using such.
Okay.
But the point is, there are grades. It's just like demographic stratification in some countries, like India. Once you are in that poor segment, you are not likely to move from middle class.
I think their own is cultural.
Yes.
They come from a cultural perspective.
Yes.
That if your father was a carpenter, if your
Yes.
father was a medicine, that is what you have to
To
do.
do,
in your
yes.
life. But it's also restricted. It's not across the spectrum.
No,
There's
no,
a
no, no,
particular
no. A particular
people, you know,
set of
that,
people.
that practice it. Now, going back to the Bretton Woods institutions, the Washington consensus, as we call the World Bank and the IMF. Historically, we know how these institutions came about, you know. It was the outgrowth of the Marshall Plan, you know, to rebuild Europe and parts of Asia that were ruined after the war.
After the war, the industrialization era.
You know. So I begin to ask, is it that their core mandate or the governing mission of these institutions changed over time when it applied to Africa? Because I know that a country like Japan, you know, used those prescriptions to succeed. And look at what Japan is today. Despite the fact that Japan is also highly, highly indebted to the World Bank and IMF. In fact, their GDP to debt ratio is higher than that of Nigeria.
That's true.
You know, so the prescription, is it that our leaders don't know how to apply them? Or is it because that they are set out ab initio to make us not to succeed, not to fail? How can we get out of that bind?
You see, the point is, when you want to carry out research, there are many tools of carrying out research. And one of the tools that I expected this Bretton Woods institution to use is to apply the observatory participation. There are some dynamics in this country that is peculiar to us, that you can't find in Japan, you can't find in Brazil. And if you don't factor those dynamics into predicting our economic growth or downward trend, then you would end up failing in the process of arriving at whatever conclusions you have. Let me tell you, the values in Japan, even when they were down there, was higher than what we have now in Nigeria. Japanese will never take anything that does not belong, an average Japanese, that does not belong to him. In Japan, you find people, what we celebrate here is like a daily occurrence in Japan. If you just take somebody, if you leave this tab on this table, in the next 1 year, if you come, you will meet the tab. But it's not the same here. The level of corruption today in Nigeria can make nonsense of any economic pill that you want to apply globally without taking into account our peculiarities in Nigeria. So for me, it's just like somebody telling you that you are not supposed to eat meat when you get to 40 and above. But another school of thought said, if you are O positive, you can eat meat to the last minute you are going to die. So you can now see that it's not one shoe fits all.
Yes.
You know,
you said something about the cultural impurities that we have here. You know,
yes.
You leave something, and after 2 days, somebody returns it, and the person is celebrated. Like what goes on in the airport? Somebody loses his bag,
and somebody,
and the person
just one in a million.
The person that returns it makes national headline and all of that. And again, talking about data, you know, I read. If you know Richard Dowden, you know, Africa, Altered States and Simple Miracles, in his book, he talked about a certain young graduate from Harvard, you know, who became a World Bank consultant and all of that. And the lady was flown to Nairobi, and she was kept in a 5-star hotel. She stayed there for 5 days without stepping outside the shores of that hotel. And she was supplied with data without venturing into the streets of Nairobi or the hinterlands of Kenya. And she came out with a report. And when she went back, it was tagged IMF report, World Bank report for Kenya. And that is what happens
That's
here.
what happens. That's what I'm
It
saying.
goes on. You know, they don't even come here to feel.
They don't use the right tools.
The econometrics. Do
Yes.
they have it? The data.
To see
You know, they rely
That's exactly
on,
what I just
they
said.
rely on data supplied by our bureau agencies, National Bureau of Statistics. MBS that are even doctored to see the preferences and perspectives of the government.
Yes.
And they come out with these figures. And when we implement them, down the line, we keep faltering. We keep taking a nosedive. And people are suffering. Look at somebody say that, Guardian, I think I clearly fault the Guardian on this. Guardian cannot say that 1,255 naira per meal is quite below average.
It's quite below average.
Quite below average.
Yes.
So, how much is a portion of rice in a buka?
It's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that.
Even the
for,
shack,
for,
even
for a
in the
standard
shack
meal.
where you go and buy,
It's a lot
that's
more
not
than
even
1,000.
befitting your status. You spend as much as 2,200, 2,500.
A family of 4 will require 150,000 naira a month to have
It's
a
not-
meal.
this is-
Let's assume you are
lot more
buying
than this.
have
Okay,
a bag
to have
of rice.
a meal,
Half a bag of
meal.
rice for a
Yeah.
family of 5. Half a bag of rice is 70. I mean, it's about 50,000. Then other items you want to buy,
Spices, ingredients.
spices,
and all of
ingredients,
that.
and all that. Even protein. At the end of the day, what does it amount to?
No, but the fact, away from what the Guardian has tabulated, the infographics that they have given us, the truth of the matter is that there is hunger in the land.
Oh, yes.
There is clear hunger in the land. And
Nobody's going to dispute that.
Nigerians are not smiling.
Look.
Nigerians are not smiling. If you walk the streets and people see you wearing tie and a suit and
Those days,
Egbo,
early
please,
last
sir,
month, when
please,
we were
sir. You know,
when we were
help us, help
commuting
us.
in public transport, what did I tell you? I said I feel insecure when I'm inside the commercial vehicle because they know you don't belong, and so they assume you are encroaching in their territory. The way they will look at you, the way they react and respond to anything you do, just please, can you help me shift? Becomes a problem, and the man will flare up. He flares up and begins to say all manners of things. So that is to tell you that I am afraid of one thing. And I told my wife last weekend, I said, please, if you are feeding our dogs, if anybody comes knocking our gate, don't open. Because when they see dog eating rice, and the person that is knocking cannot remember the last time he ate rice, or automatically you are an enemy to
you
that
become a
person.
target.
Now, it's World Food Day today. So we're talking about food. Talking about the availability of it. I've seen, talking about our experiences now, I do recall some time back, I was at a mechanic workshop, and then I sat, on a shelter where a woman was selling food and just waiting for the mechanic to finish up. And a young man came around. This was some years back. I think this was 2021. This was some years back. To tell you how things have degenerated. A young man came around, he was selling, he was hawking something. And he asked for fufu, which is, swallow, I don't know how else to explain it.
Made of starch.
And soup. And he said, no meat, I don't need meat. Who needs meat? Yeah. So he ate one wrap of fufu. I think it was 100 naira. One wrap of fufu, no meat. When he was done eating, he asked the woman for water. And she was like, she will have to go buy pure water. I said, oh, well, I don't need that. I'm an African man. And then he took a cup, dipped into the bucket of water that she had fetched.
Perhaps to wash plates.
To wash and cook with. He used it and he drank it. And then he encouraged himself on how resilient his system is. But
And that's self-desire.
it spoke to poverty.
In the land.
It spoke to poverty. This was years back. Now, just the other day, I was somewhere looking over, looking outside, and then I saw a young man who was, I think, one of these people that move around estates looking for iron to buy.
Okay.
Then he picked up an empty plate from a waste bin and was basically licking on what was left in there. I felt really bad. I felt really bad. And for him, that was food. At least he gets to taste something. People had eaten, so what was left in the plate, though it was covered in the bin, he ate it. So we have degenerated to that point.
I think there was one man that said, I think it was David Mark when he was in uniform. That said, if Nigerians have not started eating from dustbin, that there is no poverty. Was it David Mark? I can't remember.
I think someone said
Somebody
something
said
like that.
so.
What David Mark said that
That
strikes
is,
clearly is that telephone
communication
is not
for the poor.
It's
Yes.
not for the poor.
You
I
know,
recall that one.
you see, let me tell you, if you live in areas like Festac, the Abrao part of Festac, Ikoyi, Lekki, you wouldn't understand what poverty means. And if you also live in Lagos, even Ajangbadi, you don't know what poverty means. You can only see poverty in its naked form when you go to the north. This is where, do you know that up till as we speak, some people are not seen handsets and they are in Nigeria?
Of course, yes.
Do you know that some people have only one native attire that is worn almost year round? Some people don't even know of the existence of some of these staple food we eat and take for granted. They live on one particular, maybe mosa, which is like bean cake.
Yeah.
You know, it's as bad as that. Have you ever experienced almajiri in a restaurant? As we are talking here, if I just look at your face and I ignore my plate, the almajiri boy will just come and take that plate right in front of you, turn it to his nylon bag, and illegally walk away. Because the assumption is you are already filled. So you don't need it. And he goes beyond the door of that restaurant, and with his mates, they share whatever had been in that cellophane bag. That's poverty. And the current economic reality has exacerbated it so much that people are dying of hunger.
People are dying of hunger.
People are dying.
Famine in the
And
land.
not
erosion,
only that.
flooding and all of that. I want to talk about
let's not talk about natural disaster.
I want to talk about
if we want to talk about natural disaster,
to handle some of this.
It happens everywhere.
There is greenhouse farming. Why can't we graduate into indoor farming? Why do we have to, there are certain things that we can farm within a closed environment, a controlled environment, a controlled space. Why can't we graduate to that?
Moses, talking about greenhouse farming, I think I find something interesting, in the Guardian. The greenhouse farming is advanced technology, if you ask me. So let us even do the basics.
Let's bring it to the layman's level
that we can do before we start your greenhouse
elevated farming.
It's advanced technology, if you ask me, or advanced farming system, if you ask me. The Guardian says 50% of fresh agricultural produce in Nigeria is lost during post-harvest stage. Post-harvest, 50%. So what it tells you is that even the little that we are able to get to ensure food security, we also
50% is lost.
It's lost. And that brings me to the connection with power, storage, because we lose them because we are unable to store them. Now, we also lose them because we cannot even transport them from the point of production to the market, to the point of sale, the POS. Now, in between that, you have a problem of transportation, you have a problem of energy put together. Now, if you talk about energy, the minister has denied that the national grid collapsed again. That's a different conversation. But I'm more concerned.
It's an interesting conversation.
Very, very interesting. I'm more concerned with how we produce something and we can't store it. Yet to have silos. You discover that the transport problem makes it difficult for some tomato farmers, to move their produce from the north down to the south. Now, if there is a roadblock and a portion of the road has caved in, you have a trailer load of about
for days
with onions and all of that, and in the process, we lose this produce. So, by the few quantity that comes down south, the price
becomes
is
expensive.
Very, very expensive. Why is it that we are unable to manage this situation? Very simple things. Nobody is saying that you should go and produce an airplane. Nobody is saying produce a turbine. Buy the ones that other people even produced. You cannot.
See,
why?
Now, let's look at the energy side of it. Hydropower gives more energy than any other source of energy. The foundation for Mambila was laid by Obasanjo during his tenure. And Obasanjo left government now about 20 26 or 27 years ago. I mean,
No, about
17
17
years ago. Now, that Mambila hydropower project, when completed, will give us about 3,250 something megawatts. Now, 17 years down the line, nothing has happened in that. Kanji Dam is aging. It's not producing up to capacity. Our turbine stations are starved of gas to power. On top of it, at transmission, that's generation. At transmission level, our transmission lines today can't wheel more than 5,000. The GENCOs produce as much as 7,500, and technically 2,500 is wasted every day. These GENCOs, some of them borrowed money to do business. So you can now see why electricity tariff is going higher, because they want to cover costs. And nobody is looking at some of these things. The focus most of the time is the discourse that says band A, band B, band C. But can you sell what you cannot generate or what you are not able to generate? That becomes a problem. And if you are generating, you don't have the vehicle to send it down to the end users. It's also a problem. So that's for the energy side. Now, transport. Why should we, at this point in time, focus on superhighways when we have not finished with rail?
That we started.
Can't we continue with the rail and finish up such that almost all the states in Nigeria are interlinked through rail?
But the superhighway also incorporate rail lines.
Let me tell you.
They run side by side.
You are looking at a project of 15 years.
No,
level
15
at which
years? No, they said the Lagos Calabar will completed in how many years? In 5 years or what?
5 years, yes.
In 5 years.
you know the way.
There are.
You understand? So at the end of the day,
There's a headline I would like us to touch on.
Okay.
The SAN, the ministry, the Ministry of Works employing SAN to defend it in court as it concerns the Lagos Calabar Coastal High.
and because of the demolitions and on the shores.
Because yes, the petitions against it, the 15 trillion naira that's been spent, and the conversation around how it's been spent. We'll talk about that one in the course of time. But since we're talking about energy, there's a figure I would like us to put up. Let's have that figure up on the screen now. Now, this is from the cable newspaper. Yes, this is from yesterday, from a report from an individual who is in the know, as also published by the cable. The minister did say the national grid did not collapse again. But what we see here was what was generated as at 7:31 p.m. yesterday. Abuja Disco had 50 megawatts. Benin Disco had 50. Eko Disco had 80. Enugu Disco 80. Ibadan Disco 90. Ikeja Disco 110. Jos Disco nothing. Kaduna nothing. Kano nothing. Port Harcourt 50. Yola 17 megawatts. A total of 527 megawatts. But they expected
a country of 200 million, over 200 million people.
But the expectation is 4,800 megawatts before power can be evenly distributed around town. Isn't this a collapse in itself? Isn't this embarrassing?
I think that's why the power supply is epileptic.
Epileptic. You see, now 570 something.
Yes.
As against
Do you know that at its peak, if Dangote is not using his own power source along that corridor, Ibajuleki, down to VI, it is not enough to power the industrial sector and households in that island alone, up to Lekki and Ekpe. Now you are now distributing such across the whole country, and even some discos they don't even have 1 megawatt.
And you come out to say
And
that
you
there
come
was
out
no,
to say
there was no
something is not wrong
recollapse
with you.
of the national
How
grid.
can you now defend such a thing? You know, the problem we have is they are not mindful of the fact that some people are intelligent enough to pick holes in their lives. You can see what I was saying. Expected 4,800 and something. That is to tell you that you cannot wheel 5,000. And cement came into the country. We have not seen the impact of cement, and I won't be surprised if there is landmine on the way of cement in achieving better transmission lines for Nigeria. Because there was a rumor that some people that are supplying power generating sets will not want this thing to work because they have a thriving market in Nigeria. I remember the last time I went to Ghana, I went to Mokola Market in Accra, and I was on the lookout for where I would see generator to buy. Only one shop, and it has only a better past my neighbor in the whole of Mokola.
That must have been a long time ago because things have changed in Ghana now.
No, what I'm at that time, that was I think about 8 years ago.
Okay, yes.
You understand?
8 years ago.
You can imagine it's about the biggest market in Accra, and yet nobody sells generator. So who are you going to bribe in that country to shut down the national grid?
And we know that some of the importers of these equipment, gensets, are politicians.
That's what I'm saying. We know their names, but we won't mention here.
Yeah.
You understand? So the question is, when you now look at energy, you look at transportation, you know that it's an endemic problem that we are not able to solve. And do you know that government, with the almighty Ministry of Agri, that they also have livestock ministry now, can't even provide silos? Government should be an off-taker so that whatever is produced by the farmer, he does not lose. What stops government from encouraging investors to have, in a place where they produce tomato massively, to have a factory that will turn tomato into paste? So rather than wasting 50% of tomato produced in that part of the country,
Right there at the productions venue,
Yes.
you convert it to
value
paste.
chain is very weak in Nigeria. And that's why you have this perennial problem of losing almost 50 to 60% of your produce.
Moses, let me just read something. The total amount of installed electricity generation capacity for Egypt reached 59,442.8 megawatts last year.
Install capacity.
Installed electricity generation capacity, 59,000 for Egypt.
South Africa was about 90.
Wait, South Africa generates 110,000 megawatts of electricity.
Last year too?
Last year.
The total population of South Africa is about 65 million.
5 million. Now, Morocco, small Morocco, generates, Vietnam generates 80,000. Morocco generates 10,000.
In Nigeria, and we are selling. We haven't even generated up to 10,000, and we are selling to neighbors.
And we want a permanent seat in United Nations Security Council. I mean, are we not a joke to ourselves?
So now, if you have all this, then where are we headed?
Where are we headed, indeed? Big question. Where are we headed? Well, I know one place. I know one place that we can head to. Let's head to another paper right now. Let's look at some more headlines. Let's go to the Punch newspaper before we run out of time. Punch newspaper's banner headline here reads: Marketers plan petrol imports to bridge shortfall. Rider: Dangote not producing enough to meet domestic demand currently. Dealers claim. Ipman loads NNPCL PMS. All right? And then the window headlines there. PDP crisis. Damagum gets reprieve. Leads Ondo campaign. Government hires SANs for Lagos Calabar Highway suit. FG plans cash transfer for 20 million poor Nigerians. Back onto this cash transfer issue. Poorest of the poor conversation. Fresh crisis hits Rivers as pro-Fubara Wike lawmakers clash. And then high petrol price pushes inflation to 32.7%. Report. Onyon Dam, anxiety grips Ogun community over fresh flooding. Naira among worst performing currencies in the world. That's according to World Bank. Now, I want us to talk a bit about, you want to say something?
Yes, the same World Bank that sometime in February said that Naira was one of the best performing currencies. Oh my goodness. You know, Moses, before you talk about that thing, please.
Okay.
You see, there's a pictorial on the Punch. There is a PDP campaign in Ondo State. And one of the pictures there shows our dancing governor, Demola Adeleke, doing the thing that he knows best how to do. I like Demola Adeleke, the man is always entertaining. At every occasion, he makes sure
he gives
out some
our problems.
Our problems, He gives out some kind of downsteps, with his nephew, Davido,
Yes.
trailing him and all of that. But the campaign in Ondo State, well, PDP, APC, Labour Party, every other political party, we wish you well, but please conduct yourself in responsible manner so that we don't get this bickering, after the post-election, going to court, go to court, we have taken you, you snatched this, you didn't snatch that.
Going to court is legitimate.
It's legitimate, but we don't want to outsource our electoral system to the courts. Please, it doesn't speak well about us. Does it mean that
I'm sure you are
we must
indirectly
always
addressing me because I'm from that state.
So tell your people, please.
Tell your people.
So Moses,
and report
over to
well.
you. Yes.
The reports well on that day. On that day. So, federal government hires 6 SANs for Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway lawsuit. Now, one of the lawsuits, of course, is talking about they are seeking information regarding the 15 trillion naira budgets allocated for the construction of that project. That's the Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway. So 6 SANs. This is
Has anybody gone to court to challenge that budget?
yes,
the project?
yes. There's a
people are in
suit in that
court.
regard.
No, you don't understand what I'm saying. If on what basis? Is
To
it
challenge-
that
sorry,
it's
to challenge what?
overinflated
To challenge what? The cost of the project.
because of the project?
The cost of the project. that's-
Serap did
Wilson,
something.
There are other
So
individuals
those hands were hired to defend the federal government
to defend the federal government in court.
against people who filed, who sued.
There's something here. The minister did say that David Umahi, he did say that he assured that the government would not be deterred as the project went through restrictive procurement and compensation had been paid. So regardless of the fact that there's a suit, we're saying, look, we will not be deterred. This will go on regardless. I think this statement is a little bit troubling for me.
Is it sub judice? I mean, is there a court order stopping that project?
No, there's no court
There's
order.
no
There's
court
no
order.
court order.
To
There's
my
no court
knowledge.
order.
There's no.
But
Maybe what they are trying
challenging the.
Yes, asking for explanation as to how you came about 15 trillion naira, and the process of allocating the contract.
But that does not stop the project.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't stop the
It
project.
doesn't stop the project.
They can go ahead with the project, but they will
What if
have
the
to
court
answer
order
those
lingers?
questions.
What if the court process lingers for the period of time?
That's what I'm
Project.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
So the project would have been concluded before
what is going
answers
to
are
happen?
given in
What is
court.
going to happen? The federal government is just trying to ensure that one backroom judgment or injunction is not slammed on that project and stall it because of the high cost of materials now. What to buy today at 10 naira, you're not likely to get it for 12 naira tomorrow morning or even this evening. So I guess that's why they are trying to forestall that court order that the envisage may come, And I don't see anything wrong with if government is bent on that project and they feel that it has economic and social value, and they know Nigerians being what we are, that we might just put a wedge. And don't forget that in the course of starting the project in Lagos, some business concerns had to give way. And these are huge investments running into several billions of naira. So those ones would also want to kick, directly or using some of these organizations.
And one unfortunate thing is that when those structures were brought down, the Minister of Works came out to say, "Oh, we are sorry, we are not taking that route again."
Yeah, so they
They
moved.
diverted.
shifted
They
ground.
diverted
It was
to
a
the
huge
original,
resort.
to the original design.
Yeah.
To the original design.
it
Why?
now-
Because
it now
they said
felt like-
there were cables, there were
Underground cables, yes.
cables
Undersea cables.
along that road. Now, that brings us to the question of, does it mean that there was no impact assessment, environmental impact assessment, conducted before the design and even award of the contract?
One of those structures brought down is
Landmark.
Landmark Beach.
Yes.
Landmark Beach, huge.
Huge
They
investment.
said it's worth $200 million.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
it was brought down, brought to the ground.
So
And
for
after
me-
that, you had to divert the
For
cost
me,
of that route
now,
to the original design.
the destruction of that landmark resort is something that is worrisome to me, because we're talking about, there are some countries that rely solely on tourism to survive. A country like Kenya, the average input of tourism in Kenya's budget is about 75%. And here you have a result of that huge magnitude, and you just cleared it only for you to say that you are now taking a different route from that. What came up over you?
What came
that
up
you
is that
didn't look at
there were rumors.
No, of course.
There were rumors that someone highly placed in government, wanted to acquire the landmark, and the landmark didn't want to sell. There was no willing buyer. There was no willing seller, though there was a willing buyer. And why I didn't take that rumor serious is that is not the only beach point along that area.
Yeah.
If you wanted to acquire and the man,
You could have acquired any other-
you have
then,
gone to even develop your own.
You know what funny thing?
So that's why I
what
didn't
funny
hit
thing?
that rumor, but it was
An
out there in the
average,
public.
you see, why you will not discounting that rumor is that an average businessman in Nigeria wants government protection and they want monopoly. They don't want anything that will upset their plans.
Is he an average businessman or one businessman? I mean by average business.
No, I'm not being specific here. You want me to be specific? I'm not being specific.
You said an average businessman.
I said an average businessman would ordinarily will not
And I'm
want
asking you, is it one businessman or when you
several
say
businessmen.
several businessmen, several businessmen. And meanwhile, they said something about a refinery not having the capacity to take in all the.
Yes,
crude
I know
oil.
he's tired of talking about.
No, but I want him to talk about it because he has been saying that refinery is not ready.
It's not ready.
And somewhat
So this seems to buttress your point,
their
because
point.
Ipman is saying
I've
that
told you.
Dangote refinery is not producing enough.
Are they producing at all?
But it is 650,000 capacity refinery.
And what they
And
get is only 400,000 barrels per day.
Well, with 400,000 barrels, they
See,
should
I don't know arithmetic. In fact, my class teacher from Form 1 never knew me as a student because I never attended math class. If it was now that you must have credit in mathematics, I would have stopped at school sat. Maybe join them and allow people to sell spare parts.
You would have been
But
rich.
You have been
I would have been a billionaire. Yes. But the point is 400,000 barrels, and you have 154 extraction of petroleum alone in one barrel. How much do we consume in Nigeria now that fuel is about 1,200 on the average? What tells you is today we hardly consume 20 to 25 million per day. And 400 is enough to saturate the market and even export 400,000 barrels. And they are saying that somebody is not. You see, until when we are ready, we will be going this circle and it will not end. It's a vicious circle. It will not end. Government is hand in glove with the private sector in deceiving Nigerians of availability of what is not available. And we will continue like this until the available is available.
All right. You want another? You want us to respond to another?
Yes,
headline before
we are pressed with time, but I just want to, is it to read? Okay, Independent. PDP governors resolve NWC crisis, reunite feuding factions. Party demands removal of REC ahead on Goba poll. And Super Eagles now has called for diplomatic action against Libya. Customs extends deadline for private jet owners to regularize import duties. While Kogi government approved 72,500 naira minimum wage by a commissioner. Federal government has reached 4 million households under social intervention programs. That is according to Finance Minister Wale Edun. Recurring grid collapse, national shame, says Peter Obi. And Keyamo directs foreign airlines to patronize Nigerian caterers for onboard meals. Our interventions have produced encouraging outcomes. That's according to CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso. We have a picture of our own dear governor, Babajide Olusanwo, when he commissioned the red line yesterday in Lagos State. I congratulate Babajide Sanwo-Olu. I think it's a good development.
It's a good development.
That, you know?
That red line is supposed to transport about 500,000
people per annum. You know, and so if
for the 3 years after,
but it's a good one.
It's a good development.
It is a good
I'm just trying to.
Yes, it's a good development. I mean, if we had, after how many years, if we bring the Alaja Steel and Jokuta Steel, you know, if we bring them back to life, it would be good for us as a people, you know, trying to industrialize.
I think other governors as well should emulate
because nobody should say that, oh, railway is exclusive.
There'll be a connecting.
Railway is now in connecting, yes, various points of the state.
Yes.
Railway now is within the concurrent legislative list in our constitution. So don't wait for the federal government. You can build one from one part of your state to the other. And I understand Abado in Ogun State. You can move from Abado in Ogun State to
Lagos Island.
Why are you smiling? It's not the Abado that. What's the correct pronunciation of that place? Is it Abado or Abado? Alagbado in Ogun State.
Yes.
But they said it's Abado.
And they shorten it to
Abado from Ogun State.
I know the pawn you want to play.
No, it's Moses that is playing the chess. It's Moses that is playing the chess. So congratulations to Governor Babajide Olusanwo. I like what you have done with the rail line. Congratulations once again.
Congratulations. Well, this would be a good place to anchor the conversation. Big thanks to you, Dele Fafanimo, seasoned reporter, VOP in-house analyst. Thanks for joining us on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, that's it on the show. Business comes up next. Frank Fagbo is on standby, and he'll probably tell us, you know, about some of the other headlines here. We have passengers wait for planes that would not take off as number shrinks. This is a lot of airlines are unable to fly because they don't have Jet A1. Oh well, Frank will let us into that and more. All right? Bye for now. I'm Moses Humphrey. He's Chukwuma Okoro. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye.
It's Chukwuma.